let's shift gears a bit and talk about the discomforts of pregnancy and how to deal with them. So pregnancy is such a wonderful, exciting time, and your body's going under a terrific number of changes. What I'm wanting to do here is give you tips and advice for how to deal with some of the discomforts of pregnancy so that you can have the very best pregnancy possible. And we're going to look at pregnancy based on trimester, just because while you're pregnant, what your body is going through changes from trimester to trimester. Based on what your body is trying to do in terms of building your baby and the stage of development that your baby's in, you'll have different discomforts. And really, during this entire time, cut yourself some slack, because remember, building a baby is like building a skyscraper inside of you on such a small level, microscopic level. So with diet, we covered the fact that having a prenatal vitamin can help, making sure you get enough protein can help. The first thing we want to talk about is really, and we've talked about this a little bit, is morning sickness and nausea, because this is one of the first big discomfort you come up with, and this can be a huge thing. I remember when Kate Middleton, in the UK, got pregnant, she actually had some severe morning sickness and nausea and had to drop out of sight for a couple months during each of her pregnancies. Morning sickness and nausea isn't uncommon. I actually view morning sickness, I welcome it when I've been pregnant, because having morning sickness and nausea was actually a really good indicator that I was having a healthy pregnancy and that my body was going through all of the proper hormonal processes. Having the morning sickness and just kind of feeling that for, usually it usually comes on around week 8 or so, and it usually goes away by week 14, 15, it diminishes. There's one main thing that I learned through the course of my pregnancies that has really benefited a lot of my pregnant students, and that is, if you're having trouble with nausea and with morning sickness, be sure to have a protein snack, so like 20 grams of protein, the last thing at night before you go to sleep, and first thing in the morning before you even get out of bed. And the reason why this is important is that morning sickness is generally caused by low blood sugar, lowered blood sugar, or fluctuating blood sugar, in particular low blood sugar though. So if you are getting plenty of protein in your diet, your blood sugar should stay much more stable than if you're eating a lot of carbs, particularly refined carbohydrates. So if you are staying away from the white stuff that we talked about before, the refined sugar, processed flours and simple starches, if you're staying away from those, you are not going to have the blood sugar floods. Your blood sugar is not going to be going up and down, and you're not going to be having to release tremendous amounts of insulin to deal with that. And that's going to make your blood sugar a lot more stable, the actual glucose levels in your blood much more stable, and that's going to help you from a morning sickness perspective, so you experience the least possible morning sickness and nausea. So protein snack last thing before retiring, first thing before getting out of bed. If you are having trouble, one of the things you can do is try to bring your blood sugar up, if it's simply because of your blood sugar being low, by having a few pieces of whole fruit. We would suggest, a lot of physicians will recommend, have some crackers or have some fruit juice. What we find is that spikes your blood sugar. And so, you feel better for a few minutes while your blood sugar's going up, but then it crashes back down again right away, causing more nausea and more morning sickness. So from our experience, we would suggest that you have a protein snack before you get up. And if you are really desperate, if you're really feeling gross, have a couple slices of sections of orange, or a couple slices of apple or something, a nice high fiber fruit that has that will actually raise your blood sugar, but also has the fiber that's going to slow it down. This is in its whole food format, and do that as an emergency measure. The other thing that we've noticed is that, especially if you're getting morning sickness or nausea in the afternoon is that it's highly correlated with being tired. So oftentimes if you're tired or if your body's exhausted and it needs you to just like slow down and take a nap so that it can, recover and build a healthy baby, oftentimes you feel nauseous. And so for a lot of my pregnant students, taking a nap in the afternoon can make a huge difference, whether or not they feel, nauseous and morning sick at night. And so that's something I would suggest. One huge tip for working women, because this is often a problem, more often a problem for women that are working, particularly, in high stress positions in an office, things like that, is if you have a van in the family or a car that you could lay down in the back in, if your husband drives one, a car, truck, or whatever, use it, because one of the things that some very high-powered, successful women that I've coached have done is they've scheduled a meeting with themselves in the afternoon, and they've literally gone out to the parking lot, gotten into their car, driven it around the block or to a parking garage if they work in the city, parking garage close by, or a beautiful spot, beautiful shady spot, a breezy spot, just anywhere that they can not be observed by coworkers, but where they can go lay down and have a 45-minute to hour-long nap. And for them, that's made all the difference in the world, being able to have that hour-long nap in the afternoon in a way that's not obvious to the rest of the company and not obvious to their coworkers and doesn't make them feel like they're slacking. That's just a really nice thing that you could do for yourself. And depending on what kind of job you have, even if you just have a half an hour or 45-minute lunch break, instead of socializing during that lunch break, consider going out to your car and having a nap. So that's a great tip for dealing with morning sickness and nausea. Here's a couple other tips for dealing with morning sickness and nausea, particularly if you have nausea that kind of comes on unexpectedly. And if you're into essential oils at all, one of the things that I found and many women have found very helpful is to use essential oils like peppermint and ginger in particular. So if nausea comes on rather suddenly, just applying a little bit of ginger or peppermint under your nose, or putting a couple drops in your hands, rubbing your hands together and just breathing it, that can make a huge difference. Another idea along these lines that really helps with morning sickness before you even get out of bed, try mixing lavender and sandalwood and ginger into some fractionated coconut oil or into some organic almond oil, and just mix that together and rub it on your abdomen. And that can actually be very soothing, and that can help a lot if you're having some nausea and morning sick issues. Another thing that is helpful is there are a couple oils that really help with the regulation of blood sugar. So mixing together or using grapefruit, lemon, peppermint, ginger, and or cinnamon oils can really help with sugar cravings, as well as stabilizing your blood sugar. And just a drop or two of those oils, rubbing it together, smelling it, rubbing them into your skin, or oftentimes what I would do is I often used grapefruit, lemon, peppermint, and ginger. Whatever was really striking my fancy at the time, I just put a drop of that into a bottle of filtered water if I was drinking bottled water at work or filtered water at home. And that was a really nice way to ease and prevent any nausea or morning sickness. And the last thing is, when you're pregnant, your digestion doesn't work as well. And that's largely due to hormones. hormones like progesterone make the muscle contractions that are used in digestion less pronounced, less effective, and as a side effect. And so one of the things you might consider from a dietary perspective is just making sure that you're getting plenty of enzymes. So for example, because low enzymes may contribute to the morning sickness, and so what some people have found helpful is to up the intake of fermented vegetables. In particular, they have a lot of enzymes in them, so things like kimchi, raw sauerkraut, raw pickles, those where they're naturally pickled, those foods can be tremendously helpful. And as I mentioned before, especially if you're having trouble with nausea, just a drop of ginger under the nose or in a bottle of water can be very helpful as well.